Hey, everybody, welcome to the Real English Conversations podcast, the podcast that helps global professionals to speak confidently and clearly for their everyday life and work situations as well. This week, I'm excited to welcome Mark Reynolds, a decorated Army veteran, award-winning international speaker, and certified executive and high-performance coach. Mark's also the author of a book called How to Make Every Day Great. He helps and his work focuses on helping high achievers break the cycle of constantly trying to either fix their mindset or just fix or find the right tactics. A pattern that can quietly keep ambitious people stuck for years. Mark Reynolds, welcome to the Real English Conversations podcast. It's an honor to have you on the show.
Hey, Curtis, thanks. So good to finally get a chance to sit down and talk a little bit and share some ideas and bounce around, what people are talking about. So it's a real honor to be on the show. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. So let's start here. A bit of your backstory. You went from serving in the U.S. Army to becoming an international speaker, a executive coach, and an author. What experiences from your military background, the days in the Army, in that career, what are the biggest influences from that background that helped you today in a way where your discipline, your leadership skills, and your personal performance? How did your background in the military help you to become the person you are today?
Yeah. Well, I always say one of the great ironies of the Army, and I told my son, he's also in the Army, and I come from a long family of military men, my brother, my father before him. I said, everyone's Army journey is unique. And I said, for me, I never got anything I asked for from the Army. But I said, but I
Okay.
more often than not got something better, something I didn't even know to ask for. And that was a very early lesson on, it was Garth Brooks, like, thank God for unanswered prayers. And
Uh-huh.
so, I was fortunate, and a lot of Army experiences come down to this on who you're assigned to. And I got very lucky. My first duty assignment was in Korea. I was a medical platoon leader up with the 2nd Infantry Division in Camp Casey, Korea, just right by the DMZ. And it was it wasn't a hostile area, but it was warm at the time period. This is the late 90s before 9/11 and things really kicked off in Afghanistan and Iraq. But one of the unique things about me, a medical platoon leader, and in my example, in the Armor Battalion, is even though I was 22 years old, I was still expected to be the subject matter expert as all things related to medical. And so for me, it set a very immediate expectation to become professional in your field, whatever field that is, and to not be limited necessarily by your experience, to understand your limitations based on I had no misconceptions about but at the same time, people were looking to me to make medical decisions and move forward. And that gave me the opportunity right from the very beginning to move into the executive circle, the leadership team of the battalion. And then I say, really, that became the predecessor for my next big move, which was I became an aide-de-camp a year later. And for those that aren't in the military, an aide-de-camp is the commanding general's executive assistant. He kind of picks a young lieutenant or captain to mentor them. And I got very lucky in that two things. One, I knew immediately that I was in a very special command group, that the leader I was working for was uniquely gifted. And it was one
Okay.
of those things where you just know right away, like, oh, I'm part of something special. And I got that in year 2 of the Army, in year 2 of my professional career. And what I got from it was one of the colonels said to me one time, Mark, I want you to know that the Army needs you more than you need the Army. And I really couldn't
Uh-huh.
process that for probably more than a decade, because I kept thinking, like, oh, I'm just a cog in the wheel. I'm just one of many. And he's like, no, 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 no. You can never believe that about yourself in your future. He's like, the Army sees something in you. We see something in you, but you are the asset. And that's something I teach all my clients, that one of the things that, corporate America likes to do is treat people like an expense line. I'm a CPA by license. I did a lot of work in internal audit. That was spent a lot of my consulting career in corporate life. And we walk around treating people like they're an expense item to be managed, is what I like to say. But I learned very early on that our people are our asset. We say that, but I said, do we think like that? And so that's one of the mind shifts that happened very early on, is that I got into, right out of the back, my first 2 jobs people treating me and talking to me like I was an asset, that I was worth developing, that I was worth spending time on and explaining, and became really the precursor to how I thought about influence, telling people what I believe, literally saying, this is how I think about things. This is how I see things. Because these are how my first early mentors taught me. And for me, I think coaching is leadership. Leadership is coaching, and parenting. It's all the same to me. I don't really get wrapped around the title as to
Right.
what they are. I mean, I would think for me, those early on success and having people pour two things into me. One, truthful feedback, which is very rare. And I say it's one of the reasons why everyone should have a coach, is because we don't have that built into most of our systems now, where somebody
Right.
is just there for you to help you get truthful data. And then the second, this idea like, hey, you are worth investing. Like, you have value, and you've got to believe that. And when you start treating yourself like you're the most important person in your life, you're the most important person in your business instead of this expense line, things really shift. And I knew right from the beginning that how I was thinking about my career, how I was thinking about my life, was on a different trajectory very early on. And as I would say, from then there was no looking back. I could never go back through the looking glass. It was the matrix moment for me, with how I thought about corporate, how I thought about building teams, but also about this idea of what is truly potential for us. Because
Yeah.
I didn't grow up in the type of neighborhoods that excellence was expected, or there was a lot of mobility or potential. Really, people talked about, I don't like the term scarcity mindset, but everything was very much about get yours, get as much as you can, really tough environments, than to just flip into an area where this idea that almost anything is possible for you.
Mhm.
And you should really think like that. Like, this idea of like, what would you do if you really believed it was possible? And I just saw how quickly what I thought might be possible for me in my life just started really outpacing what my peers were doing. And that set me, like I said, just on a very different career trajectory. And I owe a lot of that to the Army.
That's great how they instilled personal human connection and the importance of that. And then the second important thing, yeah, feedback as a coach, as a trainer, as a teacher. I give two different types of feedback to my international students and audience that work with me.
Right.
And it's crucial in every lesson, multiple forms of feedback, and letting them know, yeah, you are capable, have the best version of you. Always think about you, have that personal connection, not only, with the student, but with yourself as well. So I'm glad that you mentioned that and brought that up. And it came from a huge influence in the Army, saying, no, yeah, you are valuable. You're not just another, number or another person in the system. You are a valuable human being, and people shouldn't forget that.
Yeah, I'll share another quick tidbit that I took away from it. So one of the colonels in the executive group was really kind of, supposed to be my tier leader. And on my first day at the job, he came to me and he said, "Hey, I just want you to know I voted and lobbied very hard against you. I did not think you were the right guy for the job, and I didn't select you. I did not recommend you. And like I said, I tried my best to stop you from getting into this position." And I was really like, what? Like, why would you say that? And then he said, "But here's what I want you to know as well." He said, "One, I hope you're wildly successful, and nothing would be better than that I'm wrong and I've misjudged you. The second
Okay.
is the general picked you, and he's a general and I'm a colonel. And there's a reason for that." So he said, "Regardless of what I think, he picked you, and
Right.
you should believe in that." And so I took away from that right away, like, yes, okay. Like, not everyone is going to be your advocate. Not everyone is going to be on board, but for the right people, you're the right person. And it made it real easy from that point on to kind of get over these ideas about being rejected. It's like,
Mhm.
there was the right woman to date. I didn't have to have every girl I asked out say yes. I needed the right girl I asked out to say yes, and she became my wife. Right?
There
That's
you
that's
go.
wonderful. But it's also like in jobs, like, because we'll go through that. But also, there's a lot. I'm sure there's people in your audience that listen to this too that have this idea and they've talked about it, and somebody near them or somebody they respect has said, "No, I don't think that's for you."
Mhm. Yeah.
You should I would offer you should open up the opportunity that if there's somebody else that does see that potential for you, and you feel like you have that potential, to maybe honor that as well, right? To not get so caught up all the time in what everybody else thinks is your potential. I
Right.
really, regardless of your take, I mean, I have my own spiritual views, but I really honestly believe that you get callings upon your heart and in your mind, that they come from somewhere, and you should really honor them, right? That's a unique part of your genetic makeup, that why you aspire to do this, why you would choose to learn English, travel internationally, like get a new job, pick up, move. When you're called, there's a reason for that. And not everyone is going to hear that call, and not everyone needs to understand it. You just got to
Mhm.
find people that understand and are aligned with helping you get what you want. And so that's what I love about what we do. I think what makes our jobs so great is just helping people get what they want.
Absolutely. And seeing the potential within themselves and not forgetting about that, not losing that connection of, okay, if I can dream it or desire it, or this is the direction I really want to go 100%, there's a way to do that and make that happen.
Yeah, and there's possibilities that exist beyond your current line of sight. Like this idea, there was really, really, we've talked a lot in the pop psychology space about growth mindsets and our ability to adapt. But I just believe that the ability for human capacity to change is so vast, and your ability to grow is so amazing that it can be shocking sometimes. And a lot of people talk like when they send their children off to the military and they come back, they're just different, and that's 12 weeks or 16 weeks of boot camp or training, one deployment. But you don't have to join the military to get that. You get into the right coaching program, you get into the right mastermind, you join, we used to talk, I've been in several corporate environments that had trainings and culture training as strong as any of my military training. I worked for the Home Depot for a while, very, very good at training the Home Depot way and how to think about that. And when you get into those types of environments, I think that's one of the first keys that you're on the right success. If you
Mhm.
get somebody that understands what you're trying to do and can help you get there. And like you said earlier, this idea about truth and the feedback, like, hey, you're doing it right or you're not doing it wrong. That's super important. And I can't underestimate how important that's been to my career and everybody that I know that has had any real success. This idea of honest, real-time feedback. I really like that in language training. And you say something and someone's like, no, that's not what you think you just said. You actually said something very different. And I've gotten in trouble with that in Spanish, in German. You think you're saying something. They're like, that's not what you said. You can really get
Yeah.
messed up and people let it go. It's like, no, you want to be able to say what you mean what you say. And like I said, that's so important to get that feedback and to be in a training environment that is aligned with what your goals are.
It's such a huge part of what I do. It's like, you're close. We can make this better. And then the other type of feedback is, yeah, you're already doing great. It's exactly what I would say. Let's keep that strong. So it's feedback to keep strong what you're already doing right.
Hmm.
And then, well, there's always room for improvement. And well, here's the feedback for your improvement. So that works super, super effectively in real time. And I love it. And my students eat it up. They love that too. They're like, oh, great. Yeah. Thanks for letting me know. Cause some of the things that they are saying really, really well and accurately, they have doubts about them. And some of same with the things that they're saying not so accurately, they have doubts about. So with the feedback, you have somebody letting you know, giving you that awareness of, wow, okay, great. My English is better than I thought it
Hmm.
was. Great.
Hmm.
Without you giving me that feedback, teacher Curtis, they call me, I wouldn't have known. And then their confidence goes up, and then, that adds to more fluency and improvements. And that's great. So that's good. So you talk about this interesting fact that I love to a lot of high achievers and clients that you work with about getting stuck in between fix my mindset and just give me the right tactics, the right tools. What exactly does that cycle look like day in and day out? And why do you think so many ambitious high achievers and people keep bouncing between the two, fix my mindset and just give me some tools and tactics to create
Yeah.
I would say lasting change.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people come into coaching or the self-development, personal development space kind of from one of two camps. And
Okay.
the first camp, like, I came in because I came out of the army, corporate consulting, which was like execution. How can I do it better, faster, productivity? I grew up reading Jack Welch and the GE way and trying to minimize time on target. And so it's real easy, when I meet somebody and they're like, just tell me the hack. Just what's the secret? They're always looking for the secret.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And I always go like, look, there's a reason why weight loss is a multi-billion-dollar industry. There's no secrets left in weight loss. Well, one ChatGPT, Claude, like text away. Like there's a million diets. There's a lot of diets that work. There's plenty of help. There's plenty of information, right? But people still are searching like, oh, this is the thing. If I just get this one thing that people are hiding, and I go, no, that's part of it. Then there's the other group of people that I kind of refer to, well, we'll say they're in the manifestation team, right? That they don't believe that they have to do
Right.
anything and think about it, right? That the universe will just provide it and it'll just drop in. And I studied advanced modern physics. I'm super into quantum and that work. And I believe in infinite possibilities. And I think the thing that unlocked from me and my clients is that I merged the two fields. And I said that you can't get caught in either one side. Because what we know from high performance studies from the get going is, even Malcolm Gladwell wrote about this, in Outliers, this idea of like, you got to get real time feedback on the actions you take. And so if you think about with your students, with language students, and I was thinking if I was doing this or when I was trying to learn German, right, I needed both sides. Like I needed to understand the grammar, the structure, the mental models around how the words are constructed, how the language is really used. But at some point, you also still just have to speak it. No amount of reading is going to replace taking action. And so, the thing that my coaching bridges for so many for the people is this idea you never get caught in either one, because at some point you need both, right? You need to understand, I say on the mental side, a lot of my clients, they say, well, that's common sense. I go, right, but it's not common practice for you.
Right.
Right. It's like, why am
Yeah.
I not doing the things that I know I should be doing? Well, new information isn't what you need at that point. You already know, you already admitted this is what I want to be doing. I'm just not doing it. That's mindset coaching. That's really, and the word I use in my practice is intentional thought modeling. How do I really want to think about this? Right. It's the same thing with the language students is like, like I said, there's a reason why we learn grammar and that the language is built in a certain way. Like I remember when I was learning German, like they don't say they turn on the lights, they make the lights on. Everything is to make.
Yeah.
Make a party. We don't have parties, we make it. Right. And that's like, once I started understanding that language, I really started to understand my German counterparts when I was working overseas. Right. It's like, yes, that's their mentality to make things. Right. They make the light, they make a party, they create it. Like, and I really love that. And I was like, oh, I really am going to adopt that into my own mental mindset. I like that. I make things. I don't have them. They don't happen to me. I make it happen. Right. Which was
Right.
such a great way of thinking about it. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, how I think about it. Like, I really think you need both. And I think anytime you're caught between one or the two, and I think everybody has their own default preference, and that's the one we go to. That's the one that served you the best. So it's really just down to, if you're trying to build confidence in any area, there's really just kind of three frameworks you need to ask yourself. The first is, we call it the clarity framework. Right? What do you want? That's the very first question I ask every client. Like, why are you here? What are we meeting for? Like, what do you
Right.
want? What out of your life?
Yeah.
What do you want at this meeting? Like, what's our purpose? And once you get that, then you go, okay, well, do I lack skills, action, a competency? Am I competent
Mm.
enough to do it? If the answer is no, I just don't have a skill, and they go, well, great. Then what you need is a plan to acquire those skills. Like, you need a language coach, you need a grammar book, you need something to do. If you say, well, yeah, I know what I want to do, and I know I could do it, I'm just not doing it. Well, then in my language, I call that the courage factor, right? That's a character component. It's like, oh, why am I not doing what I'm doing? And it all just comes down to how you're thinking about it. You've created some story in your mind. A lot of it's unintentional. A lot of it is like, we just inherited it, from our friends, our religions, our communities where we grew up. We just default these standard norms, and they're really great because that's how we get integrated into society very quickly. Is like, we don't think through how we're going to think about everything. We just kind of operate in our community, and it works until it doesn't. And then when it
Yeah.
stops working for you, or you're trying to elevate out, or you're trying to go do something else, you say, well, I haven't really given any time or energy to how I'm thinking about this. I should do that. And most people just don't have a framework for identifying their unintentional thoughts and creating intentional thoughts. And that's a large portion
Right.
of coaching practice. I always say very few of my clients initially hire me for that because, I come from a lot of doctors, CPAs, financial executives, entrepreneurs. They're still like, hey, I'm just trying to, be more productive or get home on time. And I go like, oh, great. There's always more refinement you can get in the performance areas. Every elite athlete can be better. There's still elements to there, but what my clients wind up loving is just, like I said, a lot of them haven't really thought about this. Like just the question, what do I want? I mean, honestly, a lot of people can't even answer that. If you ask them that question, they'll just come back and start listing all the things they don't want. And I go, that was not the question, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So you
Yeah.
got to get some massive clarity there.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
mean, and not to, it really, that became kind of the genesis for that book. Because I
Mhm.
was just like, oh, I want to have a great life. And I said, well, that sounds too big, too broad for me. I was like, well, okay, well, could I have a great day? How about just today? Just one day will be great for me.
Yeah.
And then I thought through, like, what does that mean?
Mhm.
Right. Which just
Yeah.
became the G for great. GREAT. Great is the acronym for, setting goals, rest and energy, take action, and then making time for the people that matter most. That's great. But like the very first thing that's what I started with is like, well, what's my goal for today? How will I know it's great? If you can't define it, then you can't grade it. And too many people are going through these lives. And that's how you end up at this place. Or, if you're a language student, you never get feedback. Like you said,
Mhm.
you don't actually try. You don't take a level proficiency exam or just go out and try to speak it to figure out like, hey, is it working? Then it's like, what? Like, how do you know if you're any good? You'll never
Yeah.
figure it out for yourself. You have to apply it. You have to get it out in the real world and figure out from there.
And that's where that courage comes from. You mentioned courage, and it can get a little bit tricky. The brain is a tricky thing when it comes to limiting beliefs. So, how do you recognize people that have limiting beliefs, the people that you work with, and
Yeah.
the belief is actually controlling their behavior or holding them back from especially what they want to achieve in life? So how do you help them recognize that, and especially when they may not even realize it's there, it's a limiting belief?
Yeah. Well, I would say so. The quickest and easiest way to answer that is that I'd say it's self evidentiary, right? If it's like, do you have the
Okay.
results you want in your life? And if the answer is no, then we just go back to the three C's that we talked about, or the four fours. Like, what's the issue? If you don't have
Hmm.
what you want, do you know what you want? Do you have clarity around the issue? Like, if you had it, would you recognize that you actually have what you're looking for? Again, a lot of people don't because they've never answered, like with my clients, like what a great career means. What's a great life, a
Right.
great family? Mhm. And then
So plain and simple, yeah.
right. And so it's like, do you have what you want in life? If the answer is no, then you go back to, well, what am I lacking? Because confidence really builds when you have a belief like, this is what I want. I know how to do it. And then the belief is this idea of like where we talked about growth, that you can do it, that you can grow. Excuse me. This idea that you can build it, right? Because once you have clarity and if you have that truth idea and the confidence, then the courage is the natural component. And if you go like, oh, I don't know it. And for me, that's a lot of what coaching is. This idea that the telltale sign is, I shouldn't say that's the skill or the art, is that people present things as fact, not
Yeah.
recognizing it's just a thought, and they'll say things like, well, nobody can do X or I can't do Y. And you go like, was that true? Nobody's ever done anything, like nobody's ever learned English from your country. Of course not. Right. And so it's like, I mean, most of what my clients are doing, they're not doing like Elon Musk stuff. They're not trying to like be the first person to put a person on another planet for us. We're trying to do
Right.
stuff that people have been doing for hundreds of years. They're trying to raise families, enjoy their lives, their careers, and be healthy and feel like they have value. Right. It's great. It's like for me, it's just like super fun. I mean, because I don't know what could be better than getting what you want. And so when you say like, well, I have a limiting belief. Of course you do. Well, how
Mhm.
do I know? Because you don't have what you want. It's like it's a de facto argument. It's like, and then you say, well, but how do I get that? And say, oh, well, you start thinking like people that have what you want. You start
Yes.
doing what people do what you want. And then the fact that you already know what you want, that puts you on the right track. So, I mean, that's why I'm always a big proponent of masterminds, for my own personal life, I talked probably for 15 years about investing in real estate, and I never did. And never did. And then I
Right.
joined a real estate mastermind group, and I was in the group a day. The very first meeting, a deal came up, and a gentleman was sitting next to me,
Hmm.
very unassuming. Another, like one of these like mentors that reaches down, and he's like, "Hey, you've never invested in property, have you?" And I said, "No." And he's like, "You definitely 100% should invest in this." And I was like, "Yeah, and he's like, "Look, do you have $250 million in real estate?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Well, I'm gonna put it like this. I can't tell you what to do, but I'm going to go buy that deal in 2 minutes.
Hmm.
But if you get up in front of me and you get that deal, get in that deal, then you'll beat me because you're that much closer to the deal, literally."
Right.
And
Yeah.
I was like, okay. Like, and I just took it I'm not giving out financial advice. It's a terrible way to pick a real estate investment deal. But I, I just was like, I had written right before that, I'd written a financial goal. My son was approaching high school, and I was trying to figure out how to pay for college. And I worked in a nonprofit at the time. And I was like, the schools my son were looking at were some Ivy League schools. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to afford this. So I have to come up with this new financial plan. And then this financial plan presented itself, and I invested it. And that story, that property became one of my most successful investments. It
Beautiful.
made it made huge money. And I'll tell just a little side story, for people that are like, "Oh my God, that sounds terribly risky." I had these visions of all the worst things that could happen with real estate, including losing your money. The day we closed on that property, the hotel got burned. An arsonist hit it day after we
Oof.
took over, right? And so immediately, like I had your expression, I was freaking out. I was like, "Oh my God, of course, like I'm gonna be ruined." I knew I should have invested in this thing. But because I'm in with a group of people, professional seasoned real estate, I'm not thinking like a seasoned real estate investor. Right. I'm
Right.
thinking like an amateur. The guy walks in and he's like, "Hey, this is great news for us. We were going to do a renovation. Like we thought we were going to have to piecemeal it out because we have residents, but hey, the arsonist burned this thing down. So now we can do all the renovations at once. We can bring it up to code massively. This just accelerated everything we wanted to do." He's like, this couldn't be better. And we're going to have the insurance money to do it right. So
Wow.
immediately flipped like from tragedy to triumph. I was thinking like, wait, wow, that's amazing. And that just
Yeah.
like again, so you go like, oh, where does it come from? Well, you get confidence as you have competency, right? It's
Right.
a very virtuous loop, right? The more confident you become something, more confident you become in it. The more confident you are, the more that you're willing to try harder things, right? And then that first deal led to me investing in many other deals and being able to weather some storms that came down the road because I had confidence like, oh, well, we'll figure this out. Like I'm with this team, I'm with experts, they have years and years of experience. I need to
Hmm.
ask, I need to think, how are they thinking about it? How do they approach it? And that,
Exactly.
right. And it transforms just another area. So like any area you're trying to transform, the more you're around people that are having success in your area, the better off you are.
In your opinion, what is the biggest misconception people have about confidence? And what can someone do, even starting today, to become more confident in professional situations, such as meetings, presentations, leadership, or difficult conversations?
Yeah. It's just what we just talked about, right? If you really listen back, go back and rewind it for just a half minute or so, there is a cycle, and we call it the confidence competence loop. And that so if you say, if I lack confidence in something, how do I get confidence? By doing it. Right. But I don't know how to do it. Right. That's why you're not confident. There's no area in your life where you started off confident before you had the competency. And if
Uh-huh.
you believe that you can develop competency, initially that's the confidence. And so there's a lot of studies they talk about, like out of Stanford, around that's why when you're trying to develop a new habit or anything, to lower the bar so low that you feel like you can't fail. Right. I
Mhm.
remember there was a celebrity weight loss group, and they were on TV, and they said that, they would set their clients up and they could only do like one thing at a time. Apologies. They couldn't do like eat better and work out and do all these other things. They said they could only pick one thing. And it was like, put on shoes for 30 days.
Okay. Right.
Right. And then it was put on shoes and walk to the mailbox or walk to the end of the street. And they would build, because this idea of like, well, if I can do that, then I can do this. And that's really how you develop confidence
Excellent. Your military experience has given you a lot of, I guess, experience with performing well under pressure. What have you learned about staying calm and effective when the stakes are really high? And how can professionals apply those same principles in their everyday working lives?
Yeah. I mean, I think anytime you're in any type of pressure situation, this idea of like, where have I had success before? Where can you lean back into other areas that you didn't have, that you found success? You didn't know how to ride a bike. You figured that out. You learned how to walk. You started off crawling. And so if you think back to any time, you just watch a child, they fail 1,000 times and they never get discouraged. That they won't. Like if you did that, if that was really who you were, you would still be crawling backwards on your
Yeah.
street, but you're walking. You learn to drive, and like driving is super complex. Like anytime you try to teach somebody how to drive, it's like this and that. But now most of us, after you've been doing it for a while, it's like second nature, right? Because now you
Yeah.
listen to podcasts and you're talking on the phone and eating drive through. But when you're starting, I mean, it's like you can't even keep the car straight, right? And you're supposed to be like monitoring the road, and then your parents start yelling at you like, "Hey, watch this car, watch this," and like, whoa,
So much going on.
a million things, right?
Yeah.
Same thing like with language. You're like, well, wait, like I know the words, and you're like, right, but that's the wrong context. Like it's really only used in this environment, right? That's a casual greeting. That's not really used for business training, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I mean, I didn't know that. Or, when I was learning Spanish, I was living in Puerto Rico, and I didn't know I was learning like Puerto Rican Spanish. Like I didn't know there was
Right.
Castilian and all these other different versions. I just learned what I was learning, and then I wasn't even really learning like real Spanish. I was learning like beach Spanish, Spanglish, because it was like half
Yeah.
Spanish, English. But that's where I was, and that's what my friends were speaking. That's what was, at the businesses I was working at. So I get
Mhm.
there, and I go down to Mexico City to speak, and they're like, "What? Like, no, that's you're Puerto Rican?" And I was like, "Oh no, I'm Texan." And they're like, "Wait, like, where did you learn that word?" They're like, "That's only in Puerto Rico." And I was like, "Okay, I didn't know that. What's your word for that?" And you learn
Yeah.
little
Oh, cool.
little things like, little hand and signs gestures. So
Mhm.
I don't know. I never got too worked up about success in that. And I think one of the things is that, once you've gotten fired for something, which I did, I mean, I got fired from one of my corporate jobs, and I realized like you could sacrifice everything trying to be successful in something that's really not you. And I go, for me, that was the ultimate failure, really, for me, was getting fired from a job I didn't want, to live a life I didn't want to live, just because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. What's a failure? It's a failure in that, you live your whole life trying to live your dreams and accomplish what you want to do. I don't see how that's ever a bad thing. And
No.
so, and then I guess more directly, part of it is in the military. My first battalion I shared with you, we were in an armored battalion. One of the things that's really unique about the armor versus the other branches is they only have an attack capability. They have no defensive positions. So they're
Okay.
purely offensive, purely aggressive. In fact, our motto was always attack. And so that's what
Oof.
my first boss said. He said, "Hey, if you don't know what to do, just attack something, anything, just
Okay.
attack. Don't worry about it. Don't, like, the old patent, like, don't hold on to anything. I don't want to hear about you holding on to anything. Just move forward."
Right.
So I kind of took that mentality with everything. It's like, oh, if I see something, a lot of people don't like attack, but I'm just like, so just always action. Like, just take action. Just keep going. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what's on. Don't try to hold on to the past. So just keep moving forward. Just keep moving forward. And you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to break through. And it's real easy to think back to any point in your life. And I asked you, if I told you, hey, how did you get to right where you are today? Like how you and I got into this room to record this. If I asked 18-year-old version of Curtis and 18-year-old Mark, hey, how do you get here? We would have never been able to plot the course that our lives took, because
No way. No.
you're not, because I always say you're one conversation away from changing your entire life,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was
Absolutely.
one conversation with my wife in a chance encounter that I was like, oh, I'm going to marry this girl. I
Mhm.
could, I couldn't have planned it. I wasn't in like college thinking like, oh, on this day I'm going to run into like, no, no. It's like I'm just out living my life, getting around people that I like. And then
Yeah.
I met her, my best corporate jobs. I mean, it's a longer story, but I tell folks, my first corporate consulting job, I wound up working for a company that I had applied to I had applied to, and I had been told that I didn't qualify because I wasn't, I was at a business school, but I wasn't at a tier 1 business school. I wasn't at Harvard. I wasn't at Stanford. And they said, hey, we only recruit from these types of schools. And so I was rejected from the company. But like I said, I'd been attending these industry meetings with other industry executives, and I was in an executive industry function, and I wound up having breakfast with a gentleman, and we just were sharing our thoughts about the industry. And he was like, wow, you seem kind of young. And I was like, well, I'm in grad school. And we went back and forth. And then he said, hey, would you mind meeting a couple of my friends later on for dinner? He's like, I'd love for you to share what you shared with me. Those are some really interesting thoughts. I said, oh, okay. Well, what I didn't know was that dinner was an interview with the regional partners for a local accounting firm, the national accounting firm. And they ended that dinner and they said, well, actually, hey, we all work for this group. Would you be interested in maybe coming to talk to us about working for the firm? And I was like, oh, well, ironically enough, I applied to come work for your firm. And they were like, oh, I don't care about that. Like basically they were like, fine. HR sees you one way. You belong here. This is the group. I see exactly what you're trying to do. There's an entire practice that can be built around this. And so again, when you start to get into these ideas around what's possible for you, it can be very limited when you try to fit yourself into some mold that wasn't made for you. Whereas if you are real clear about who you are and what you stand for, there are opportunities that create for you, that they come into existence for you because you're so compelling based on those elements. Always take action. That's the best thing I took out of those environments.
Yeah, I think you answered the question really well. It's like almost make a list of the accomplishments, even if it was, learning a musical instrument, learning a language, learning a sport, learning to ride a bike. You fall, you get back up again, and you try again. You do it again, and don't let anything else get in your way. Right?
Yeah.
It's basically the answer that you gave me was, yeah, just, failure. Well, it's not really failure. It's something happens that isn't supposed to happen in a certain way, but you get back up or you try again, you do it again. And then eventually through repetition and practice and trying again, you're going to achieve what you want to achieve.
Yeah. Well, it's really funny. I was just sitting there thinking as you were talking through that, I would say, like, you don't know it, whether or not it's a failure or not, because your life the story isn't over.
Right.
Right. So I think Tony Robbins is the guy that said first, like, your setbacks could really be setups. And I go, like, I always believe that, like, things happen for a reason. Like, I didn't get interviewed. I didn't get called in off campus visits for an interview because my path into the company was through the partnership. Right. Mm-hmm. And ironically, the second part of that story is that I wound up coming in at a higher level. Like, I came in at a senior role and I was auditioning for an entry level role. Right. And HR was right. Like, you're no good for an entry role. Right. But the partner saw senior potential. Mm-hmm. Okay. But this idea of, like, if no matter where you are, you've had some level of success because you're here. Right? And for some people, just surviving long enough to get to this point is a major accomplishment, which is, I think, the other, I would just say, for general coaching, free for everybody, is never measure yourself against outside success metrics, because you don't know where other people started or where they came from. And so you made tremendous progress to just get to what you think is a normal space. And that could be absolutely celebrated. And it should be. I certainly see it in the military. And then I've worked in the nonprofit for space. There are a lot of people, like, if you got up out of bed today, and you got dressed and you did your best, it could be a win. It could be a great day in the traditional definition. So, you'll never get so fixated on some kind of external metric, because I say the goal is not to arrive in some place where you get to be happy or proud. The goal is for you to feel happy and proud about what today in real time, about the life that you're living. That for me is the mark of success. Is that, you're living the life that you intend to live.
And is this something that you touch upon in the book that you wrote, How to Make Every Day Great? What are some of the principles? Is this one of the principles in the book that you believe can make the biggest difference for someone who wants to become more productive, confident, less of a procrastinator, effective without completely changing who they are?
Yeah. The book is just another framework for introducing really the kind of those 4 C's that we talked about, right? Clarity. So GREAT is the acronym, stands for goals. Like, you have to have a goal for the day. You need to be rested. So we always talk about, like, a lot of people treat rest like a luxury. And I go like, that's not the way it works. I have
No.
a coach that talked about Formula One race cars, like NASCAR. I went to school near Daytona Beach, right? Those cars are designed to go fast, and they're designed to go fast all
Yeah.
the time. Clients want to go fast. They're like, hey, I want to do this. They have big dreams. I go, great. And you need to pit. The pit is like, the goal is not to go as fast until you blow a tire out or you run out of gas out on the racetrack. It's like, no.
No.
You go as fast as you can. Then you're like, hey, I need to pit. When you come in to make the pit, it's to rest. It's like, hey, the engine needs to get recalibrated. Right. And so in high performance, we talk a lot about recalibrating your life. So you may have been in a busy season and now you've got younger children. And so you go like, oh, I need to recalibrate work for the family. The family has grown. I have adult children now and they've gone off to college. Okay, well, I can recalibrate post-parenting because the kids don't need me as much. So this recalibration is something that a lot of people don't consciously thought. They just don't have a framework for doing it. So the great framework is one of the things around doing that. And rest it's an element of all my clients need more rest. One of the first things I do is I literally treat you like a child. And I say, you need to set a bedtime and you need to go to bed just like a kid. And they say, yeah, but you go, nope, it's bedtime, right? Because the rest today, anything is stealing energy and it's stealing from the dreams of tomorrow. And too many people do that. They just come into the day already exhausted. And it's a recipe for failure. If you don't have the energy to take action to live your life, then it's just going to go downhill from there. And then that's E is for energy. It's like, obviously it needs fuel to go. Every engine needs
for
fuel,
sure.
right? And then A is for action. I say, you got to take action.
Yeah.
Right.
You got to do something.
Like nobody can do your push-ups for you. It's like, you got to take, right? If you want to do it, it's like, you got to do it. And like too many people are like, hey, I want the world to change. Like, no. Like, if you want to change your life, change you. That's much easier than asking the world to change. Right? And then T is time. And that comes from my own personal story. And I say, it's like, you got to have time, make time for things that matter the most. And I felt like that my learnings early on with raising a family and my corporate struggles with just trying to always be everything for everybody else. And I wound up looking back and not realizing I don't have time for the things I say matter to me. And you go, well, how do I know? I said, well, I always say, if I parachuted in like an airborne paratrooper into your life and I looked at your calendar, it should be really obvious where you spend your time, and where you spend your time is your priorities. And so if they're misaligned, then you already have the framework. It's like, oh, no. If I say it matters, then it matters because you give time to it. You can't say it matters if there's no time or action associated with it. And that's where a lot of people get into these midlife angst, right? Around these dreams they've talked about. But when I say, well, you talking about writing a book or going on this trip, right? I was like, if you want to go to Europe, it's like, put it on the calendar. Hey, that's the first step. Like, just pick a date, pick a destination. Tell me where you want to go, because then the path reveals itself. It doesn't go the other way around. Like I said, once you have the destination, you can figure how to get to where you want to go. But, otherwise, till then, you're in Alice in Wonderland doing which way? Any way will do. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And then all the pieces fall together or come together like a puzzle. So I love that. Goal setting, rest, energy, action, and time.
Yeah. Right. You don't have to be sure. You don't have to know the whole path. Like, a lot of life is just taking action on what you think is the next best thing. It's like, you'll know when you take a step, and then new choices reveal. And that's how life goes. Everyone, like I said, like, you're never going to plan it all the way through. You'll never know all the steps in advance. You only get one or two steps ahead. And that's where faith comes in. Or why you do what matters to you is because you just have to take it on faith. Like, oh, I'm doing I can, and the path will reveal itself. And they said, look, you ultimately reach your goal, you pick a new one,
And then you see the end result, and you achieve the end result that you're looking for, most likely, with that framework and those things put into place. And finally, if you could give my listeners one final piece of advice to the ambitious professionals that are listening out there who know they are capable of so much more, what would that one piece of final advice be for them that they could start putting into action today? Would it be that framework of goal setting, rest, energy, action, and time?
I will give you one each, right? Since we talked about a large portion of the practice is having better thoughts and better actions. So for the first thought I would give you is that I find it super useful, super empowering to go back to what I said about faith, to believe in your ability to have the life that you want.
Yeah.
That's a life worth living, is a life in pursuit. And that I found a lot of joy, and my clients find a lot of joy in this idea of trying to build our dream life, even if it never fully materializes, because I've noticed that it changes along the way. But the goal is to enjoy it while we're doing it. That's success to me. And then in terms of actions, you go like, yeah, but how do I do that, Mark? That sounds great, but like, how do I do it? Then I think we shared a great framework in this. I mean, there are a lot of different frameworks. One of the best things about being in a coach is that it's like you get to find the framework that works for you. And most people just don't have frameworks in life. But
Yeah.
in this case, we gave you a great one, right? If you're not getting the results you want, probably comes down to you lack clarity in the goal. Like you just don't know how to, like what it is you want. And most people skip this step. It's the number one step that all people skip on the great day framework. It's like they don't set the goal for the day. They just don't do it.
Mhm.
It seems like, oh,
No.
that's, but I go like, no. In the military, that's the number one thing you do. You say, what's the objective? Like, how do we know that we've won?
Right. Yeah.
And then the second, right? And then it's just the other two, the two pillars, right? If I know what I want to do I know I have the skills to do it? Am I confident in my confidence in my competence to do the activity? And if you go, no, like, well, that's no big deal. That's just a skill gap, right? That's super easy. You just figure out, hey, who teaches what I need to learn how to do? Bingo. That's easy. And then if you go like, well, great, I know what I want to do. I know how to do it. I'm just not doing it. Well, that's just the courage component. It's like, well, how do I get the courage? Well, one is you improve your mental models around like, hey, it wouldn't be put on my heart to do this thing if I wasn't going to be able to do it. And I don't have to be able to do it all perfectly now. I just need to get going. Right. And then the other idea is like, oh, well, I mean, that's also available too. Just like you can hire coaches to learn skills. There's lots of coaches that teach mindset work and have frameworks for helping you develop these mental models. I mean, there's therapists, there's an endless amount of capabilities. And I go like, it's super easy. At that point, you just try to figure out which one of the three is stealing your confidence. And I mean, almost 99.9% of the time, if I can get a client to identify one of the three and then just make some progress on that, it's all you need to unlock. And that's really the answer, right? Is like, am I getting closer? You may not be going as fast as you want, but you go like, am I getting closer to my dream? It's easy. Yes or no?
Yeah.
If yep, it's like, good. You keep going. You'll get there. No, it's like, I'm not. Well, let me make an adjustment. Let me figure out which one of the three I'm missing. Let me go through there. And I
Back
go,
to the drawing board. Yeah.
it's hard when it's your own life because you take it personally, right? Whereas as an outsider, one of the benefits of coaching, like I said, is like, it's none of it's personal for me. It's like my goal is help you get what you want. We just identify it. That's coaching is like, oh, this is the blind spot for you. I don't see it that way. It's not. We're not all wrapped up in the emotion of it the same way a good mentor is. And also, we have the benefit of seeing hundreds of clients, dozens of clients, whatever it's been, of people who have had success kind of go through it, right? So there's an ability to have confidence. And the reason why I bring that up is just like with that kernel, well, if
Yeah.
you lack confidence or the courage to do it at first, then maybe you can borrow it from somebody else.
Right.
And that's what I did, right? Because I didn't believe I was really worth a lot as a lieutenant. But I said, he made a point to tell me that. And the general made a point of selecting me. So they see something I don't see yet. So I'm just going to believe that. I'm gonna borrow that from them until I can develop my own courage, my own confidence, and my own abilities to be what they see in me. And
This has been, such a influential and important podcast for my audience to take away these frameworks and advice and, learn about your book and probably discover that. So where can my audience find you, connect with you, find your coaching programs, find your book? Where can my audience and listeners find you online?
yeah, I mean, so the book will be on Amazon. It's probably the easiest place to find it, but you can find it wherever you're going to look for books. You can always reach out to me at mark@reynoldscoaching.com. It's also the website, reynoldscoaching.com. And then, hey, my favorite place to hang out is on LinkedIn. I've been on LinkedIn for a long time, so I like that. It's a great space. So, but you can find me on any of the socials, but if you want to talk to me, I engage most on LinkedIn. The other ones I'm really, they're there, but it's much slower.
Okay, excellent. I'll put all those links in the show notes and description of this podcast so my audience can easily find you if they choose to do that, which I definitely recommend. And hey, it's great that I had another author on because I always get asked by my students, do you have a book recommendation for me? So there we go. I've got
Yeah,
another
great.
recommendation for my students as well. So I'll be sure to do that. So thank you so much, Mark Reynolds, for joining me
Thank
on
you,
the
Chris.
Real English Conversations podcast.
So my pleasure to be here. Thanks so much. I had a great time.
You're welcome. And now stay tuned for more information on one-on-one coaching with me in the 90-day challenge.